EMSradio.com.
EMS information for the next generation.
The EMS Garage is a production of EMSradio.com. You can find us on Facebook, just search EMS Garage. You can find us on Twitter at EMS Garage. Email us, emsgarage@gmail.com, or call us, 303-720-6001.
The EMS Garage.
Checking out right now. Okay, I got DG on the phone there. Want to know if you can handle that call as well. Just confirming you are checking the patient. Salmonic 22 is on scene.
Hi, I'm Chris Montero here at the EMS World podcast / EMS Garage podcast studio mashup at EMS World Expo 2018 in Nashville. And I'm joined by the famous Mike Taigman.
Famous or infamous or whatever it takes, right?
No.
Nah.
How have you been?
Really good.
Yeah,
really
you're with
good.
First Watch now, loving that?
It is so much fun
Cool.
to be part of the EMS world from the perspective of kind of a consulting software company that
Right.
I spend my entire life helping old friends make their systems and organizations better.
Nice.
That's all I do.
And
it's great.
So let's talk about that. How are you doing that, and how are you teaching people like me to make my system better?
You know, it's there's no super easy answer to that. It involves really understanding your data and the things that matter to you from a data perspective is kind of where we tend to start.
Right.
So whether it's how quickly are you getting somebody whose coronary artery is blocked to have that little wire poke through and get that balloon inflated so that flow's restored, or are you able to identify the people who've got the big vessels in their brains plugged up so you can get them to the comprehensive center early, and what's the data oriented around that? And when I first became a manager, I don't know if you can remember way back to when you first became a leader, Chris.
Oh.
It's been a long time ago.
It has been.
But I remember the first time I like wrote a memo, and you have this fantasy that I wrote a memo, so the world should change, right? Everything should instantly line up with what I just wrote.
Right.
And it was really unnerving to realize that it didn't work that way, and that there were some early adopters who were like really into it, and some people who never quite came on board, and a bunch of people kind of waffling in the middle. And when we think about like a patient-centered approach to EMS, me as a somewhat obese 59-year-old here, if my coronary artery closes up, there's a bundle of care that I should get, right?
Right.
And so one of the things we're able to do is we're able to look at your CAD data, your EPCR data, low-code data, whatever it happens to be, and be able to like near real time analyze, did a patient get what they needed to get in that moment? Yeah. And so you can look at it from the individual provider perspective to provide kind of instant feedback on their performance, but more importantly, to be able to look at your system and your processes to say, hey, we added in, ketamine to better manage, whatever type of situation we've added it to the system for, whether it's analgesia or sedation for, synchronized cardioversion or airway management or something along those lines. And did it have the impact that we hope it had? So many EMS systems all over the world, they change protocols on a regular basis.
Right.
With the intent to help, but they change the protocol, and then most of them don't have any way to know whether that actually mattered or not. They don't have any theory, they don't have any way to look at it.
Right.
So we really provide them with a near real-time view about how things are doing on the things that matter to them, which is a blast.
I think that's cool because I love data, but having mountains of data is just numbers until you actually do something with it.
Well, and the reality is most places have too much data, and it's not organized into meaningful information.
There you go.
So part of what we do is we help people, organize it and then display it in such a way that you can interpret it in a way that is actually accurate
Right.
and meaningful, which can guide your action. And then you can see real quickly, did the action I take produce the result I hope to take?
Right. So you're one of the original DG medics.
I'm old, yes.
Did you, back when you started, did you ever envision you'd be doing what we're doing today?
That's a really good question. And when I was a street medic, long range planning for me was, what are you going to do this weekend?
Right.
So I didn't spend necessarily a lot of time thinking about the future of technology and those things. My EPCR, I still got a photo of it. It was a half page. It had name, address, phone number, vital signs, and a big place for narrative, and that was it. And there was 3 copies, and you left one at the hospital, and one went somewhere we never knew where, and one went back to records for billing. I carried a Life Pack 4, which weighed 44 pounds, and you could drop it down 17 flights of stairs, and it would still shock somebody. And as I walk around the exhibit hall here, there's crazy cool innovations. I mean, my watch here, here I'll show you. I don't know if you can see it on the camera here.
Probably not.
But this is my Lead 1 EKG that you can take right here, and it has an atrial fib detection monitor in it. It's got a fall detection monitor in it. The level of wearables and patient involvement in their care and all that kind of stuff wasn't something I really thought about or considered.
Right.
But it's super exciting.
Right.
And it's super fun to think about a world where we're fully integrated and collaborative with the rest of the healthcare system. On the EMS Agenda 2050 project, one of our technical expert panel members is a young primary care physician who's also a Harvard professor, who's just a super innovative kind of thinker.
Cool.
And getting her perspective on how EMS could collaborate with her to manage her patients with chronic disease in ways that serve all of them better, would make it better for the medics,
Right.
better for her, way better for patients. It's just, I'm as excited about the next 30 years as I've had fun for the last 40 years.
That's awesome. So we can have all this great technology, we can have all these great things, but you helped develop something eons ago that kind of revolutionized, at least in my mind, because I've read about it, and I think it's pretty interesting, StarCare, and how you and Tom really pushed that forward. But because you can have all that cool technology, but if you're a jerk, it's not going to matter.
None of it matters.
Right.
None of it matters.
So how do we continue to find the right people that have the calling? Because that keynote yesterday, when they were talking about we're called to do this, it's a drive to do
Sure.
what we do. How do how do we continue to find those right people and make sure that they're doing the right thing in the house at 2 a.m. And even with all the technology in the world, we're not going to solve those issues. How do we find those people?
That's a really, really good question. So I think part of it is growing those people. So I have a 7-year-old at home, so I think about this a lot. And part of what we've done with him since he was real little is when we'd read him books at night when the cartoon pictures would come up in the books. We'd ask him the question, how does that person feel? How does this person feel? How does this person feel? And when he was really little on playgrounds, and he'd be playing with other kids and on a teeter-totter, and see the other kids start to get scared, I'd say, Ax, look at her face. And he'd look at her face and instantly shift his behavior to something that was kinder and more connected.
Nice.
And Tom's third edition of People Care just came out, which I'll pitch.
Right.
If you haven't read the book, it is extraordinary. It should be required for everybody who's a caregiver. It's a really elaborate set of examples all around empathy and the importance of empathy. So I believe empathy can be nurtured. I think it can be developed. It can certainly be assessed for in interview and scenario situations to see whether or not somebody has got it. And our company has been expanding, so we've been doing interviews nonstop. And my primary selection criteria, even though we're kind of a software company, kind of consultant, all this kind of stuff, my primary criteria is are you able to really be aware of the emotions of people around you, the impact your behavior has on how they feel,
Right.
and can you adjust and synchronize to make the world better for them and for yourself in the process?
That's cool.
And that's really the essence of being a good healthcare provider. My personal physician, she's amazing from that perspective.
Right.
And I value that. And even though her medicine is rock star, she's
Right.
great from that perspective. Her ability to connect with me and when I come in for my annual physical, I don't see her a lot, but come in for my annual physical and have her say, what's going on today? Something's a little off. And she's noticed something.
Right.
And be able to have a real conversation about that and talk about.
She doesn't just sit with her computer like this. You're feeling like this. Yes. Okay. Got it.
That's
unfortunate.
And I've had those healthcare
Right.
experiences too, and it's interesting because she does have her computer, but she's really clear about. I'm going to take a note on that right now, and she doesn't pretend to continue the conversation while she's writing the note. And then she comes out of the computer and is clearly not looking at the computer and is fully engaged with me. And then when there's something to write or something to do, she steps so it doesn't feel intrusive at all.
So we as EMS providers could learn something from that.
Absolutely.
I've seen that in the back of the ambulance where the care provider is at the head of the patient going, oh yes, and all these things without ever acknowledging that thing.
It's that pretend listening.
Yeah.
Which is almost worse than not listening at all.
Completely agree.
Right?
Because then people think you're engaged, but you're not. You're thinking about 50 other things, and that's so
it's huge. I mean, the Stephen Covey's fifth habit was to seek first to understand and then to be understood. Right. And taking that time to really understand. In medicine, they say that good diagnosis is 90% of the cure. Mm-hmm. Well, 90% of good diagnosis is a good history. And if you don't shut up and listen to what your patient says, and rather than trying to instantly classify, is this a pleurisy, is this an MI, is this a PE, whatever, you're trying to do that, sorting out in your brain to relax a little bit and really let the patient fully tell you the story. More often than not, they'll tell you the diagnosis if you just listen long enough.
Right.
But there was a study looking at primary care physicians when people came in with a complaint. They interrupted the patient on average 17 seconds into the patient's description of what was going on.
Wow.
Interrupted on average because they thought they
Right.
had a notion
I
as to
figured it out.
I know
exactly
what
what's wrong with you.
Exactly.
Well, you had said that, and I was thinking at the same time, we often try to rush to that, I'm going to fix you. And then we get frustrated as paramedics. We're dropping a patient off at the ER, and then they tell the nurse completely something different.
The rest of the story.
If you would have listened, you would have heard it all on the way in, but
Right.
you didn't, and you didn't take, and that first impression, that time you're taking, even if it's 2 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, getting that trust and that bond with that patient can last you the next 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, however long you have with that patient, because they're going to tell you everything.
And it's a skill that doesn't go away.
Right.
I haven't been a primary paramedic for a long time, but I've still gone out and run calls, and I'm running calls with new medics who don't necessarily know me or whatever, and I'm mostly there to carry gear and carry the patient, and I do the cleanup and that kind of stuff afterwards. But I was on a call recently with a young woman, and the medics, getting the story and assessment, and there's a part of empathy is listening for what's not said. That's part of the story, and the medic thinks this is an ankle injury, and doing a little ankle exam and splint, and is like, okay, let's go to the hospital. And I looked at her and I said, who hurt you? And she was like, kind of surprised, you could tell. And I said, were you raped? And she just totally broke down and told the whole story.
God.
And the medic was like, do you have some magic ESP perception? And it's like, no, there's nothing magical about my ability to listen.
Right.
It's just about focusing and paying attention.
That's cool.
And you discover stuff that way, and people will tell you things and share things if you're the person who people feel comfortable talking to.
That's cool.
It's a huge deal.
It is. Well, it's probably one of the most important things we do.
Yeah.
So, shifting gears, and I know
Yes.
you were on the 2050.
Yep.
What is EMS like in 5 years?
So that's a really good question. So I'm not the world's best predictor, but I have intentions.
I like it. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Isn't it Peter Drucker that said the best way to predict the future is to create it?
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that the people-centered aspect of EMS Agenda 2050 really becomes front and center in everything we do. Right. So from education to compensation to leadership and management to our patient care, and it's people-centered, not patient-centered, right? So it's people, including the patient, including the family members, as you so eloquently discussed in your keynote.
Thank you.
The other day, and what you've been writing about is a big deal from that perspective. But it's also for the providers. Right. One of the things that hasn't been as much of a focus from a national perspective is how do we provide a workplace where people can be joyful? And one of the questions we ask as we did these, 4 sessions around the country and at all these conferences is ask the question, what can we do to add joy in the work for frontline EMS providers and EMS providers throughout, not just frontline? And it was interesting how irritating that question was to people.
Why?
We pissed people off by asking them, how would you increase joy? Well, people said, well, they call it work for a reason. This is not supposed to be fun. And actually, the Institute for Healthcare Improvement has been doing some remarkable research on the clinical impact of joyful healthcare providers. And they are building a batch of data that is showing that the happier and mentally healthier and more resilient that your healthcare providers are, that patients actually do better. Less septic patients die, less things get missed, and those kinds of things in the assessment. So my hope is that it will be more dialed into patients, and that technology will be used to support, but not replace. So that the idea of our technological evolution should be to do things that technology can do behind the scenes to allow the medic to do that human to human, empathetic, compassionate thing that the computer can't quite do for you.
That's a good point.
Can't quite do for you.
So how do we increase joy?
That's a really good question. And part of it, it's that listening conversation. So in order to be able to do that, you need to, there's no recipe. It's not like, okay.
Yeah. If we
switched to 6-hour shifts and had red stethoscopes, everybody would be happy. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
Sorry, that's great. All right.
So it's really about having a conversation with your teammates and talking about what makes you happy about this gig? Why did you get into it? What are the aspects of this organization that piss you off? What are the things that cause you frustration? Because if you can quit pissing people off and quit frustrating them, it increases the opportunity for natural joy to emerge. I'm not sure that we can give people joy, but we can create an environment where people can experience the joy they bring.
Nice.
So that's kind of that cultural perspective in my estimation. I've been doing a whole lot of research in interpersonal neurobiology, which is it's a fabulous course of study by folks at UCLA. Have really kind of coined this new branch of science, and it's really about the neuropsychology and the brain science behind mental health, what it takes to be mentally healthy, and resilience, and happy. And they're doing a ton of research on this, and I think that we have an opportunity as leaders to create workplaces that increase that opportunity. First thing you do is quit doing annual performance evaluations. Just stop. No. And I know the CAS folks are maybe watching this.
Well,
and I know Sarah and I have had this conversation.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice.
I know. And I've talked with Sarah, and she gets what I'm talking about. So I am absolutely confident that there's a way you can meet some level of that CAS requirement and quit doing the, you realize, it is, even though it is November 1st here, that on October 18th last year, you were 15 minutes late for work. Did you notice that, Chris? And I'll mark you down for that. And, the kind of ridiculous stuff.
Yes.
My favorite annual performance evaluation story, I was consulting with an EMS system in a central part of the country, I won't name it, doing strategic planning, and I'd gone to the bathroom down a hallway that was around the corner from the room we were meeting in. As I was coming back, young woman in a paramedic uniform, just cussing up a storm. I mean, she was so mad. She went on for like 2 minutes without repeating her cuss words. I mean, she was angry. Okay, and
That's a talent, by
it
the
was
way.
amazing. And I, I was doing strategic planning. I didn't work there, but I'm an empathic person. So I said, seemed kind of upset. She said, "Damn right, I'm upset." And she got a piece of paper in her hand. She's flicking it, and it was her annual performance evaluation. And this system had 14 different things people could be rated on, with 0 being the lowest, you suck, and 5 being outstanding. And she was rated number 5 on all 14. And that was confusing to me. I said,
Right.
"What? You got the highest rating, and you're like pissed off? What's going on?" And the bottom was the raise you could get, because they tied their compensation to the annual performance evaluation, which is the second sin of annual performance evaluation. And she could get a raise from 1% to 5%. And she got a 5% raise.
Okay.
She got the highest rating possible. She got the biggest raise she could get, and she's angry as hell.
Somebody said something.
And I said, "I'm confused. Why?" And she flicks her finger at the signature of the supervisor who rated her at the bottom line. She says, "I've never met him. Are you him?" I said, "Not me. I'm just a consultant in town." This person who had rated her on her interpersonal communication skills, on her teamwork skills, she'd never met him.
Wow.
And it was just so, perfectly illustrative of a really toxic process that we just continue to do for no good reason.
Right. We do it because, it's a requirement.
It's a requirement, or HR will get upset if we
agree,
don't,
I
or
agree.
whatever the story is.
Awesome. Well, Mike, where can people find out or contact you and just get a hold of you for all things First Watch, Mike Taigman, data, blah,
So
blah, blah.
my cell phone number is 510-593-5730.
You just put it right out there.
My email, and you're welcome to text, call anytime you want. My email is mtaigman@firstwatch.net. I'm on Facebook. I certainly accept Facebook friend requests from EMS colleagues. I'm on LinkedIn.
Cool.
I try to be as available for folks as I can, and I'm really thrilled to spend time with you. It's really fun to see you, and
You're amazing.
and the work that you and your amazing bride are doing to bring a level of humanity and kindness and consciousness to our world it's a big deal to put yourself out there like that, and I admire the crap out of it.
Thanks. It was not easy. Trust
No.
me. Oy, yeah.
Not at all.
A lot of introspection.
But we all get the benefit of your willingness to be vulnerable in public.
Thanks,
It's a
man.
big deal.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, I'm Chris Montera, and I can't even wrap a podcast up any better than that. So find us on all these things, and there are more great content coming out.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was great. That was a great. Oh,
Fun.
Oh.